Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow morning. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you are joining us live, drop a 1 in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a 2 in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Wiehann Olivier, Chartered Accountant and Audit Partner and Digital Assets Lead at Mazars, South Africa, focusing on blockchain and cryptocurrency. Wiehann, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Wes. Appreciate the time.
Let's just jump straight into the meat of it. Tell us your story, where do you come from, and even outside of work, who is Wiehann Olivier?
Thanks so much. Yeah, so I essentially obtained my B.Ac degree to the University of Stellenbosch. Once I finished off there, I started articles, and while I was doing my articles at Mazars in Cape Town, I started working on my postgraduate diploma in accounting. Passed that eventually, then wrote board, all that, finished up at Mazars with my articles, stayed on afterwards for a couple of months, and then I thought, let me see what's going on in the corporate world. I left Audit essentially to join Maitland's private equity and real estate division. I was there for a full 6 months, and then I decided to go back to Audit. And I've been with Mazars ever since. Of course, Mazars being an international integrated firm as well. I did a couple of months overseas working in our New York office as well. And then back to South Africa, and then essentially just climbed the ropes, or went through the ropes in Cape Town, becoming a manager, senior manager, all the way to partner back in 2018. I think back in I think the start of 2018 or the start of 2019, I identified this potential that we could have in the cryptocurrency sector and servicing these virtual asset service providers that are essentially disrupting the financial services sector. And then we started to build credibility from there. Of course, I did a course through MIT in the US on blockchain innovation. And I'm also currently studying a master's in digital currencies and blockchain technology as well. So yeah, it's been quite a wild ride. I've been through all the ups and downs in the crypto market and felt the punches with our clients as well. But of course, we've tried to make this industry as safe as possible for all the stakeholders involved, and that's the main aim for us as auditors as well. I mean, and outside of work, I'm probably not your ordinary chartered accountant, but in the sense that I like to do a variety of things. It's not just sitting in front of a laptop and working over the weekends and so on. My wife just gave birth 2 weeks ago to our baby daughter, so our first child in the house. Thanks so much. So yeah, that's also been quite a challenge on its own. But yeah, looking forward to it. But otherwise than that, that's who I am and what I do.
And so outside of work, you mentioned a little bit on the weekend, sports person, not sports person, or you
Yeah. I was joking about it over the weekend as well, while the Springboks was playing against Australia as well. I think we left my mother-in-law's birthday a bit early, so I can make sure I'm on time back for the Springbok game. So yeah, and spend time over the weekends. I usually just go for a walk with my dog every single morning. We go walk 4Ks and come back, maybe take a jog. And then we'd like to socialize over the weekends with friends and family. So that's essentially what we do over the weekends, to take some time off and to chill and just move your mind away from the crazy work that happens from Monday starting probably at 6 and Fridays ending whenever.
leaving early for a buck game? That sounds like priority.
Yeah, or proper client lunch.
But you mentioned audit partner feels like one end of the spectrum, and like digital assets, blockchain, and cryptocurrency kind of feels like the other end of the spectrum. Like, how do you marry the two?
So it's an interesting concept, because if you think about auditors in general, I wouldn't necessarily say chartered accountants, but auditors tend to be very risk evasive. So they want to stay away from something that they're unfamiliar with, or they want to focus on what they do and what they do good. So it's a weird part to actually, for auditor and digital assets to cross, because of the fact that digital assets has gotten such a bad reputation over the last couple of years, especially with the use of cryptocurrency, with the use of illicit trade and financing due to its pseudonymous characteristics. And also, of course, the amount of scams that take place in South Africa and across the world on a daily basis. So it does seem like something that the auditor would tend to stay away from. But I think what we've done in Mazars, South Africa, is we've gone and we went out into understanding technology. We went out to understand how this industry operates, what to look for, what to look out for. Of course, I don't say yes to every single client that comes along and say they want an auditor, appoint an auditor, or they need help from an accounting point of view or from a tax advisory point of view. Of course, we do our due diligence and assess it as well, of course, just to make sure that these individuals that we are accepting as clients, that we want them and we want to be associated with them as well. Because if you can imagine as well, and maybe we'll chat about the regulations a bit later, but these virtual asset service providers, even though they operate in a regulated space, meaning the Companies Act, Exchange Control Regulations, the VAT Act, the Income Tax Act, they are operating in a regulated space. The only issue, however, is that the asset class that they're dealing with still is unregulated at this point in stage. So that's a fine line to understand as well. And of course, if these virtual asset service providers don't adhere to the bare minimum of the Companies Act, at least, what's going to happen down the line when the asset class is regulated and they need to adhere to all of these regulations? So that's where you need to make your assessment of your clients and what is their views in terms of the regulations in South Africa and across the world. But back to the question about how audit and cryptocurrency comes together, and it's quite interesting. I thought about the other day as well. If you think about any industry per se, anything in the world can actually be audited. Of course, if there's element of subjectivity to it, it becomes a bit more difficult, and then you start working with the reasonabilities and ranges and those types of things. But anything out there can essentially be audited, and the same applies to cryptocurrencies as well. Of course, there is these what we refer to as these pseudonymous characteristics, meaning that if you look on the blockchain, cryptocurrency transactions can be traced to any payment and receipt. But the issue is you can't necessarily see who the owner is of a public key address, of let's call it an account on the blockchain, who that account holder is. And of course, there's certain ways to prove that you're the account holder on the blockchain, but there's not necessarily an ability to link a public key address or account with the individual user. Of course, when there are instances of fraud, you can follow this trail by subpoenaing information from exchanges and all those types of things, because eventually the exchanges or the cryptocurrency need to be liquidated for real world money for the scam or whoever is stealing the money to do off with it. But I mean, of course, not referring to cryptocurrencies. This is the only thing that's being used for is the scams and the illicit trade happening out there. There is a hell of a lot of good that cryptocurrency is doing in the world currently as we speak.
For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end. So please add your questions to the comment section now so that we make sure we don't miss them. So let's say there's a young professional out there who might be interested in learning more about digital assets, more about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Which resources would you recommend, or where should they start?
Geez, I think you did a webinar on Monday as well, where I like the fact that you said that you had some skin in the game, because the sooner, if you want to learn about cryptocurrency and see how it operates and how it moves, you need to have some skin in the game. So the first of all is, I would say, go to a virtual asset service provider, such as the likes of Luna or Valor or Altcoin Trader, one of those guys, and open up an account and play around with it. Try to understand it. Move funds from your wallet to an on-chain address. Try and self-custody your private keys and all those types of things to make sure that you understand cryptocurrency and more or less how it operates. The second part to your question is where you go to learn more about cryptocurrencies and where you go to understand more about it. And I think this is a difficult area, because I think when I got involved initially, I did that through course through MIT, but the issue is there, it gave you a base to work with. It gave you a high level understanding of what digital assets are, what cryptocurrency are, how blockchain operates and all those types of things. But it didn't give you the deep down knowledge of what is a public key, what is a private key, what is multi-sig wallets, how do you gain assurance over ownership, how to link pub keys with ex-pub keys, all that becomes very technical. And I can tell you, evenings on end I spent online researching it and reading up on blogs and all those types of things. So unfortunately, when I started to get involved, there wasn't a hell of a lot going on in this space in terms of literature out there. Subsequent to that, of course, there's been some literature. Andreas Antonopoulos is a very famous, let's call it a lecturer on digital assets of all Bitcoin and Ethereum. He wrote 2 books, Understanding Bitcoin and Understanding Ethereum. So that drills into the more technical detail if you're interested in that. But if you want to learn more about the industry as a whole, it's just to stay abreast. I mean, MoneyWeb, they've got their dedicated crypto page as well. You mentioned Crypto Banter, also gives you a good understanding or just an update of what's happening in the market. And I mean, even if you think about some of the other virtual asset service providers, like Luno, they issues blog almost daily. The same with Valor, Revex as well, also a client of ours. They also issue these blogs on a regular basis, and they host webinars as well. The next webinar is happening, I think, this week or next week, where they specifically chat about the Ethereum merge as well that's taking place now this month. So there isn't a central point to gain all the information or one course that you can do that can solve all your questions or those types of things. It's constantly keeping abreast of what's happening in the market, but also doing a hell of a lot of reading in terms of how this technology operates. Because the thing that we need to understand is, I got a question the other day from someone asking about how does Walmart use the Bitcoin blockchain to chat transactions, which of course isn't the case, but they didn't understand that there are multiple blockchains out there. And multiple blockchains means multiple currencies as well, being if we call it something like a ERC20 token on the Ethereum blockchain, or maybe just a native token of some other blockchain that's being created. And all of them have different characteristics as well. So if you're seeing something like Bitcoin is far, far, far from what we see, what Ethereum is as a currency, as a blockchain as well. And the same with Ripple, and the same with Solana, and the same what we refer to as these altcoins as well. So there is a hell of a lot going on. And that's something that you mentioned on Monday as well. You need to look at the underlying technology of the digital assets if you want to invest in cryptocurrency, of course, or you want to buy cryptocurrency for utilitarian purpose. So yeah, that's it in short.
I see that you've got a master's in blockchain. I wasn't even aware that there were degrees that focus specifically on the industry. Is it like a well-kept secret?
Yeah, so I battled to find something because, as I mentioned, I did the course through MIT as well, and it only pierced the surface in terms of what was going on in there. So I started to do research. Also did, I think at some point I subscribed for this thing to become a certified blockchain professional. Of course, they just test your knowledge and you write a couple of multiple quizzes and then you get that certification. But nothing was really enough in the sense that I needed something that carried a bit more weight. And then, of course, that essentially led me to the current course I'm doing to the University of Nicosia in Cyprus. And essentially what they do is it's 7 subjects. If you're not going for thesis, I think it was 7 years. Oh, no, sorry, it's 9 subjects that covers a variety of subcategories of cryptocurrency. It talks about a blockchain, talks about the laws and regulations. It talks about how it is designed, the tokenomics behind it, the security behind it. And I mean, they have been running since I think almost it might be 2013 or 2014. So they've come along a long way, a while now as well. And of course, some of those lecturers that I mentioned, this Andreas Antonopoulos, he's also one of the lecturers at the university as well. But yeah, it's really an industry and a topic that you can't imagine actually how vast it is. You think cryptocurrency it's just a straightforward topic, but it definitely isn't. I had one of my partners asked me the question as well a while back and says, why are you doing a master's in cryptocurrency? Isn't it just too focused? And I said to her, you clearly have no idea how vast of a topic this is, of all the inner workings that goes with cryptocurrency and the principles of money that actually play a fundamental role in cryptocurrencies and decentralized finance as well.
And now the famous question, what's your opinion on where the market is currently?
So once again, of course, like if you think about the market and watch it on a day-to-day basis, you'll definitely be more gray than you and I am now, because I mean this market is extremely volatile. So from my perspective, of course, I'm not giving financial advice whatsoever, but from my perspective, I believe in the technology over the long term. So my plan is to keep my digital assets up until 2030 and then reassess from there. So I hold certain currencies with utility, and we spoke about this prior to the call as well, is when I invest in a cryptocurrency or I buy a cryptocurrency, I tend to look at the underlying asset. Is it a case where there is a real technology there, or there's certain elements to that give value, as opposed to just buying some meme coin that has no utility whatsoever, for example. So if you think about it, something like Ethereum, of course, actually Ether is the native token of the Ethereum blockchain. And now the Ethereum blockchain allows you to mint things that we refer to as ERC20 tokens. And you can create any type of token if you want. I can create UA tokens now, and I can sell it in the open market, but depending whether someone will buy it or not. But it doesn't have any utility, it doesn't have any real technological value or anything of that sort. It's just another meme coin or altcoin that doesn't really have any value. So just bear that in mind. So my long-term goal is 2030. I've also got there's a couple of interesting investment platforms as well. So something like Revex, you've got these predefined bundles that you can buy as well. So you can look at a top 10 market cap bundle. So back in the day, I think when I got involved initially, I was looking at these bundles, and I couldn't necessarily understand the reason for wanting to buy a bundle that holds a top 10 cryptocurrency, because I can just go to Binance and buy these cryptocurrency and hold it, and I can weight it accordingly. But I think once I understood, I think post 2017, how the market moves and how a coin that could be 20th could be ranked in market cap 5th in a week's time, just shows you how quick the market can move. So to a certain extent, I've also mitigated my risk and hedged my risk a bit by investing into these bundles. Of course, they've got the top 10 bundle, they've got the decentralized finance bundles, they've got smart contract bundles. So it invests in different cryptocurrencies with different use cases and those types of things. So that's also one of the products that I like to use, that gives you a more of a broad exposure to the cryptocurrency market. But I mean, where we find ourselves in, it's been a bit of a downturn, but I mean, for most of the world markets have had a bit of a beating as well. I think I want to say the black swan is like a flock of black swans flying over us at our day and age. But it is one of those things, and you need to just power through it. And once again, it comes back to the age-old saying: it's not timing in the market, it's time in the market. So when you're investing in cryptocurrency or any other type of investments, it's important to remember that there is a lot of volatility, not as much as cryptocurrency, but over a short period of time. So then when you invest, you look at usually 5 to 10 years investment periods as well. So we are on a bit of a downturn, but we're looking for that to move up going forward as soon as we see more and more adoption of cryptocurrencies as well. I mean, if we look at El Salvador was the first country to accept Bitcoin as legal tender. I think there was a country in Africa as well that also accepted Bitcoin as legal tender. And that's not necessarily to say that you can go into any shop and use Bitcoin to pay, but it basically builds that mass adoption that we're looking for. And slowly but surely, and it's quite interesting being in an audit environment as well, is we're seeing these legacy clients of ours that actually start to incorporate and use cryptocurrency on a day-to-day basis. So we've got these legacy clients that either they're holding cryptocurrency on the balance sheet to hedge themselves against the devaluation of fiat currencies such as the rand or whatever the case may be, or even for cross-border payments and remittances as well. So it's very interesting to see that use case. But that plays into the fact that I'm saying is cryptocurrency as a whole is reflexive. And reflexive meaning it has value because someone else believes it has value. And the same applies to gold, of course. Gold it's just a metal that we're harvesting from the earth, and it has value because I believe it has value, you believe it has value, everyone believes it has value. And the same happens with cryptocurrency. If people start to understand cryptocurrency as a whole and the use cases, that will also have that element of reflexivity to it as well. And as soon as that mass adoption starts to grow, the value of the cryptocurrency on offer will increase. And that's why I firmly believe in the long-term investment of cryptocurrencies.
Great. I've got a few more questions, but these questions are coming through from the audience, so I'm rather going to jump over to that.
Perfect.
We've got a question from Tivasha who says, what made you go back to audit? Because I know most people leave after articles. Some people say, okay, I'll spend 2 years as a manager. You've been there for 13 years. So what's got you coming back?
I think first of all, I think the firm Mazars that I'm working for is just an excellent firm to work for. I've never been treated unfairly, but I haven't always gotten my way, of course. And I've had so much opportunities to grow within Mazars. But I think the reason why I'm still there is first of all, it's the clients, the people I deal with, and the flexibility of it all as well. Flexibility, of course, you would think audit has deadlines. We've got a hell of a lot of deadlines, but the industry or the profession does provide a certain element of flexibility that you wouldn't necessarily have in a corporate environment. So that's one of the key things. But the other thing is just the people and the clients and dealing with people, because I'm a people's person. I like dealing with individuals and various different peoples and solving problems and those types of things. And I remember when I was at Maitland, I think during the 6 months that I was there, my phone maybe rang like 5 times, and with just a group of 5 or 6 individuals around me that I was talking to on a day-to-day basis. And then I just came to the conclusion, I've accumulated this wealth of knowledge in audit, tax, management accounting, and financial financial statements or IFRS or whatever the case may be, accounting, thank you. And I didn't use it on a day-to-day basis. And it felt like it's all this potential or all this knowledge that's gone lost. And that's why I made the call back to Mazars, because on a daily basis, I use every single thing that I've learned over the last 13 years. I deal with individuals on a day-to-day basis. And I do have that flexibility to, on a Friday, if I want to go out for lunch with family or friends or clients or whatever the case may be, I know I've done my bit throughout the week, and I can basically just take it from there and also enjoy my own time and take a bit of the stress off.
Got a question from Bren who says, how is it like doing CTA and audit work? And what is your opinion regarding the UNISA CTA program?
So it was rough. It was definitely rough to do both, but I think it's important to make sure that you prioritize. Of course, if you want to, and of course, commit as well. We were studying early in the mornings, then you went to work, then you did some studying after work. Over the weekends, you studied instead of going out with friends and all those types of things. So you need to prioritize in terms of where you want to spend your time, and that's one of the key things. You also need to have that support of family and friends around you to make sure that you're able to do it. But it is hell of a difficult, but it's completely doable. I mean, I've done it, and so many people before me and after me have done it. It's just a case of dedication and seeing where you want to end up at the end of the day, because having those 4 letters of CASA behind your name makes it a completely different ball game in terms of going into the world, and not in South Africa, but all across the world. We've got a highly sought after designation as well. So it does open a lot of doors. Look, and the UNISA CTA program, it is difficult. I know back in the day, Graham O'Reilly was presenting the NSOA, National School of Accounting classes. That was extremely helpful, because those classes, I'm not one just sitting in front of the books and reading material. I need someone to explain certain subjects to me as well, or certain topics to me as well. And that I found extremely useful. But I think reading from books alone isn't necessarily always sufficient. You need to supplement it with those interaction and classes, definitely when you're doing that CTA through UNISA.
I also did my CTA through UNISA, but I was lucky to do it full time, and I also did it through NSOA. So that says something. We've got a question from Bali who says, is it good to hold cryptocurrencies in easy equities? It doesn't seem to be growing. Or which platform would you recommend?
So we're all really spoiled for choice in South Africa when it comes to the different platforms that you can choose from. So in my personal capacity, is I audit a lot of these virtual asset service providers, so I know a little bit about the inner workings. You need to look at the reputation in the market, how they view regulations, how the custody solution works. So there are a lot of things that you need to look out for. I can't necessarily say that one is better than the other, because there isn't strict standards to compare to. If you're looking for cheaper fees, you go to one exchange compared to other. If you're looking at different products, for example, if you're looking at products such as I mentioned, that's the bundles, you go to one virtual asset service provider compared to another. If you're looking for farther reach of various currencies, you can look for one virtual asset service provider as opposed to another. There's also these we refer to as DeFi, is these DeFi investment platforms as well. We can actually earn interest on your cryptocurrency as well. So it depends on what you look for in terms of what you want to do to determine which virtual asset service provider, which platform you need to use. But like I said, they are vastly different. Even though on face value they seem to do exactly the same, you need to figure out what works best for you.
Great. I think that's a great answer. We've got a question from Bronwyn. It says, what is your opinion on the scalability versus centralization argument? Do you think centralization will decrease with the adoption, or do you believe that tokens that sacrifice centralization for scalability will lose utility?
So there's the age-old question, of course, when any blockchain is designed. It basically has three main pillars, if I can call it that. The one is the scalability, the one is the decentralized leg, and the other one is the security. So I think different cryptocurrencies solve different things. And maybe let me explain this by way of example. If you look at something like the Bitcoin blockchain, it was designed with the element of decentralization and security in view. So it gave a little bit way to the scalability element of it. And you look at something like Ripple, for example, was more focused on the scalability and the security of it as well. So these two cryptocurrencies, focuses were different because they were trying to achieve different things as well. Satoshi Nakamoto's idea with Bitcoin and releasing the white paper is he wanted that element of decentralization, that there's not one single party that's involved. But of course, that has a downside as well. With if you look at things that the way the blockchain evolves and decisions needs to be voted on and those things, but it makes it very democratic. But if you look at something like Ripple, for example, it only has, I think, 20 nodes. So there's only 20 records kept around the world. But of course, that causes the transactions to occur a lot quicker and a lot cheaper. But of course, you can't necessarily compare the one to the other as well. So that's why we sit with what's referred to as the blockchain trilemma. Those three elements that are being weighed off against each other to try and see where to focus on something more to achieve a certain element. So I don't necessarily see there's a right or a wrong answer here. Once again, it goes back to what you're trying to achieve when you're designing a blockchain to determine what will be your focus area of those three pillars.
This is one question that I like to ask all my guests. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
If I think that'd be cheating, because then I would just say to myself, buy a lot of Bitcoin. But if I can give myself a bit of advice, it's just to stay as eager and as hungry as you possibly can. When I was at Maiten, there was a consultant that worked there, Gerton Driasma was his name. He was from Netherlands, and he explained to me, if you're ever working at a company, and of course you're constant learning, as soon as that line starts to plateau and there's no more learning taking place, then you need to find yourself a job as well. So if there's any advice that I could give my younger self as well, it's just to keep that in mind, to stay motivated, to stay eager, to stay hungry, and just to remember that graph should also always be heading that way as opposed to plateauing, because as soon as it starts to flatline, you're just wasting your own time, and you could be achieving other things and gaining more experience and more knowledge on other parts as well.
That's great advice. Any last few words from you, or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think I mentioned briefly to you. So, for those interested in digital assets and cryptocurrencies as a whole, at the end of this month, there is what we refer to as the Crypto Fest happening in Cape Town. I'm also one of the speakers at the Crypto Fest. So that's happened on the 30th of September in the waterfront. You can go to Bitcoin events on their page as the Crypto Fest there for tickets. And then later this year, I'm also talking at the African Tech Festival on the 10th of November. I think it's running on the 8th, 9th, and the 10th of November. I'm also one of the speakers there chatting about cryptocurrencies and how it has the ability to transform the financial landscape in Africa. And of course, have a look online as well. There's multiple articles and podcasts and webinars floating around where I discuss various topics regarding cryptocurrency, because as I said earlier, this topic is so vast. I can't provide you all information in an half an hour session. So try to, if you want to know more, stay online, listen to the podcast, listen to the webinars, do your reading of the articles, form your own opinions, and most important of this, just to stay safe as well, is as I mentioned, there is a lot happening in this space as well, and make sure that you deal with credible virtual asset service providers as well if you want to get some skin in the game.
That is a great way to end. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Wiehann, thank you so much for your time.
Only a pleasure.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.